Hi there, thanks for joining. One viewer asked how to make yellow darker. When you look closer at darker yellows, when you isolate the color, you see that some dark yellows lean more towards a brown color. Some are a little bit more neutral, a little bit grayish. And you also have some dark yellows that lean more towards green. So the thing is, we can grab a little bit of black and try to make yellow darker that way. I'll show you. Then you see, that's the first problem we encounter when we just use black. It becomes darker and that's great. But in this case, with this black, I get a greenish kind of dark yellow. And that all depends on which kind of black you use, because some blacks are cooler and some blacks are warmer. And cooler means that it will get more green because cool black is more towards blue. And the warmer black is more towards red. And then you get a more brown mixture. So if you accidentally need a yellow that leans a little bit towards green, then I'm lucky this black will do that for me. But what do I do when I need a more warm yellow? That's a little bit of a problem. So now let's look at another method to darken your yellow. You can use the complementary color of yellow. Complementary colors are colors that lie opposite of each other on the color wheel. And you see that opposite of the yellows you have purple kind of colors. Now of course it depends on which kind of yellow you have. If you have a neutral yellow you have more a purple like this. If you have a more orangey yellow, then you need a purple more like this. And the fun thing about complementary colors is that if you have exactly the right complementary color, you'll get a kind of gray color. So I'll show you. Here I'm gonna mix a purple color. And I do that by mixing magenta and cyan. Now it's a matter of trial and error. Here I have a purple. I don't know if this is exactly the right complementary color for this yellow, but I'm gonna find out. I grab a little bit of yellow over here and I'll add a little bit of this purple mixture. And let's see what happens. Slightly more. We get a nice dark yellow color and it's reasonably neutral as far as I can tell now. And it's difficult to see. But we can see it better when I add a little bit of white. You see, when I add a little bit of white, you see that it is reasonably gray. So now we know this is kind of the complementary color of this yellow. We've tested it. But the point that I want to make is this. You can balance this purple, of course. So you can add more magenta or you can add more cyan. So you can get a more bluish purple or a more magenta purple. So let's see what happens if I put the yellow over here and I add this mixture. Okay, then we get this color. So here I've added less purple than I did here, but that doesn't matter. But let us assume that I need a more brownish kind of shadow color of yellow. Then I can add a little bit of magenta, more magenta, and just build it slowly. So take a tiny amount and see what it does. It immediately gets more towards the brown side. Still, it's more, can use more. Well, you can balance that, of course, so I can add even more or even more. Do you get the idea? I hope so. And you see, then you get more of that brown kind of color. And of course, if you wanted to have this more dark, you could add more of that purple mixture in the first place. Here you go. Then you have even darker kind of yellows. And with this as well, you can add more magenta if needed or more cyan. And of course, if you do the same, if you add an amount of purple to the yellow and you want to have it even more towards the green side, then of course you simply add a little bit more cyan. But to be honest, the main problem often isn't the color mixing, because it's quite easy to understand, I think, but the bigger problem is our perception. We get tricked very easy. So when we look at a photograph like this, we see, yellow and a darker yellow. But if we isolate the color, we can more clearly see what kind of color is this in reality. And then we see, in fact, this is a kind of a brown color. And then we know what we have to reach for on our palette, and then color mixing is quite easy. If you know what you see, then it gets easier. It sounds strange, but that's the way it is. Oh yes, that's the other thing I wanted to show. You don't exactly need cyan. You can also buy phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is a useful color. If you make phthalo blue lighter, you see that you get cyan. So it's the same color. Phthalo can also be used for very nice purples that you can use to dull your yellow. And because phthalo is a darker color than cyan, you can go even darker. So and you see this mixture is slightly darker than that mixture that I had over there. Now I'm gonna add some yellow. And here's a good example. You see, this gets to the green side. So in my initial purple mixture was too much blue, too much phthalo blue in comparison to the magenta. So if I add more magenta, again, it's the same old story as we did here, but then we get a more neutral, dark yellow, and I can add more magenta for a more brown kind of yellow. Yeah, it sounds strange when you say it like this, but that's a little bit the way we go about it. Now, I hope that makes sense. Please feel free to ask questions in the comments about color mixing. Maybe I can cover it in a video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.